They say the best love stories begin when you're not looking for them. Mine started on a rain-soaked basketball court, with tears I pretended not to see and a heart I didn't know was ready to break open. My name is Alex Chen, and this is the story of how I fell in love with my teammate, my best friend, and the one person who taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply let yourself feel. If you've ever loved someone when the timing felt impossible, if you've ever been terrified to cross that line between friendship and something more, this story is for you. Stay with me. I promise, this journey ends with hope. The gymnasium smelled like old wood and determination. It was a scent I'd grown to love over 4 years at Riverside University: sweat, competition, and the kind of camaraderie that only comes from pushing your body to its limits alongside people who understand. Basketball had always been my sanctuary, the one place where everything made sense. Dribble, pass, shoot. Simple, clean, unlike the rest of life. That October evening, practice ran late. Coach Martinez was drilling us on defensive rotations, her voice echoing off the walls as we ran play after play. My muscles burned in that familiar, satisfying way, but my mind kept drifting to the guy running beside me. Ethan Reeves. Number 23, 6'2" of focused intensity, with dark curls that fell across his forehead when he was tired, and eyes the color of storm clouds. We'd been teammates since freshman year, and somewhere along the way, he'd become my best friend. The person I grabbed coffee with before 8 a.m. classes. The one who understood my terrible jokes and never judged me for the Thai food obsession that had become legendary among our friends. He was also the reason I'd started to question everything I thought I knew about myself. Chen, head in the game, coach's voice snapped me back to reality. I refocused, driving toward the basket, but not before catching Ethan's eye. He gave me that half smile, the one that said, "Where'd you go just now?" without words. That was the thing about Ethan, he saw everything. It was what made him such a good point guard and such a dangerous friend to have a crush on. Not that I'd admitted it was a crush, not even to myself, not really. Practice ended at 9. Most of the team headed to the showers, already making plans to hit up Murphy's bar for wings and beer, but Ethan lingered on the court, taking shot after shot from the free throw line. His form was perfect, knees bent, elbow in, follow-through smooth, but something was off. The ball clanged off the rim. Again. "You good?" I asked, walking over with my water bottle. He caught the rebound, held it against his hip. For a moment, I thought he'd brush me off with his usual "Yeah, man, just tired." But then his shoulders sagged, and when he looked at me, I saw something I'd never seen in Ethan's eyes before. "Vian, can we talk?" His voice was quiet, almost swallowed by the empty space around us. "Not here, somewhere, private." My heart did this weird stutter-step thing. Of course, my apartment. He nodded. 20 minutes later, we were climbing the stairs to my place, a tiny one-bedroom I'd somehow managed to snag off campus. My roommate had graduated early, so I had the space to myself, which meant it was currently a disaster zone of textbooks, takeout containers, and basketball gear. I kicked aside a pile of laundry and gestured for Ethan to sit on the couch. "Sorry about the mess, wasn't expecting company." "Alex, I've seen worse from you." He managed a weak smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I grabbed us both beers from the fridge, even though I had a feeling whatever this was, alcohol wasn't going to fix it. When I sat down beside him, careful to leave a respectable amount of space between us, Ethan was staring at his hands like they held answers to questions he hadn't asked yet. "My dad called today," he finally said. I knew about Ethan's father, Richard Reeves, corporate attorney, former college basketball star himself, the kind of man who wore success like armor and expected his son to do the same. Ethan rarely talked about him, but when he did, there was always this tension in his voice, like he was bracing for impact. "What he want?" "To remind me that I'm throwing my life away." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "That's a direct quote, by the way. He found out I'm thinking about grad school for sports psychology instead of law school. Apparently, that makes me a disappointment." "That's bullshit," I said immediately. "You'd be an amazing sports psychologist. You're already the guy everyone comes to when they're in their head about a game. Try telling him that. Ethan took a long pull from his beer, but that's not even the worst part. He went quiet again, and I waited. Patience had never been my strong suit, but with Ethan, I'd learned. He was the kind of person who needed space to find his words, and rushing him only made him retreat further. He also asked if I was seeing anyone, Ethan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Said it was time I settled down with a nice girl before I graduated, that mom's been asking about grandchildren. Oh, oh. The air in my apartment suddenly felt too thick, too warm. I set my beer down carefully, aware that whatever came next mattered more than almost anything we'd ever talked about. "And what did you tell him?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Ethan looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it, the same fear from the gym, but underneath it something else, something raw and true and terrifying. "I told him I couldn't do that," he said. "I told him I've been lying to myself and everyone else for years, and I'm done. I'm done pretending." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Ethan." "I'm gay, Alex." The words came out rushed, like he'd been holding them back for so long that releasing them felt like exhaling after being underwater. "I'm gay, and my father lost his mind, and I think he might actually disown me, and I'm terrified, but I'm also relieved. Is that crazy?" "It's not crazy," I said, and without thinking I reached over and took his hand. His fingers were cold, trembling slightly. "It's brave as hell." He squeezed my hand like it was a lifeline. "I haven't told anyone else yet. You're the first person I've said it out loud to, and I know this is a lot to drop on you, and if it's weird or—" "It's not weird." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Ethan, it's not weird. I'm honored you trust me enough to tell me." "Yeah," he looked up at me, and God, those eyes. Vulnerable and hopeful and so scared. "Yeah." We sat there for a long moment, hands clasped between us, and I felt something shift. Like a door had opened that neither of us had known was there. Or maybe I'd known. Maybe I'd been standing in front of that door for months, too afraid to even acknowledge its existence. "So what happens now?" I asked quietly. "I don't know." Ethan's thumb traced small circles on the back of my hand, and I wondered if he realized he was doing it. "I guess I figure out how to exist as myself instead of the person everyone expects me to be, figure out how to deal with my family, figure out what I actually want from life." "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," I said, "and you don't have to figure it out alone." Something in his expression softened. "You mean that?" "Of course I do. You're my best friend, Ethan. That doesn't change because—" I stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. "Because I'm gay." He said it with a small smile, testing out the words. "Because you told me something personal," I corrected, though we both knew what I'd almost said. "Whatever you need, someone to talk to, someone to sit with you in silence, someone to tell your dad to fuck off, I'm here." He laughed then, a real laugh that chased some of the shadows from his face. "I can't picture you telling Richard Reeves to fuck off." "I can be intimidating when I want to be." "Alex, you apologized to a vending machine last week when your snack got stuck." "That's different. The vending machine had feelings." We were both laughing now, and just like that, some of the weight lifted. Not all of it. I could see it still sitting on Ethan's shoulders, the fear of what came next, the uncertainty of a future that suddenly looked nothing like he'd planned. But for this moment, we were okay. He didn't let go of my hand. I didn't pull away. And when he eventually left around midnight, promising to text me when he got home, I sat alone in my apartment and stared at the hand he'd held, trying to understand what I was feeling. Pride in him for his courage, protectiveness fierce enough to surprise me, and underneath it all, something I'd been pushing down for months. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. I didn't sleep well that night, every time I closed my eyes. I saw Ethan's face, the vulnerability, the relief, the trust. I kept replaying the feel of his hand in mine, the way his thumb had traced those absent circles, the way the space between us on that couch had felt both too wide and dangerously narrow. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Ethan, you still up?" "Me, yeah, can't sleep. You okay?" Ethan just wanted to say thank you for tonight, for not making it weird. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. "Me, nothing to thank me for. That's what friends do." "Ethan, you're a good friend, Alex Chen." I almost left it there, almost said goodnight, and tried to get a few hours of sleep before class, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the late hour when defenses are down and truth comes easier. Maybe it was the memory of his hand in mine. Maybe I was just tired of pretending I didn't feel what I felt. Me, for the record, I think anyone would be lucky to have you in their life. However you are, whatever that looks like. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Ethan, that means more than you know. The next few weeks were strange. Good strange mostly, but strange nonetheless. Ethan seemed lighter after coming out to me, like he'd shed a skin that had been suffocating him. He smiled more, laughed louder, played with a freedom I'd never seen in him before. During practice, he was unstoppable, threading passes through impossible spaces, his court vision sharper than ever. Coach Martinez actually pulled me aside once to ask if I knew what had gotten into him. "He seems different," she said, watching Ethan run a fast break drill. "More present, whatever's going on, it's working." If only she knew. But while Ethan was finding himself, I was losing my mind. Because now that I knew he was gay, now that the hypothetical impossibility of us had transformed into a theoretical possibility, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about us, about all the moments that suddenly felt loaded with meaning they might not actually have. The way he'd lean against me on the bench during games, shoulders pressed together. The inside jokes that made us crack up while everyone else looked confused. The fact that he always saved me a seat in the dining hall, always remembered how I took my coffee, always seemed to know when I was having a bad day before I said anything. Were those just friend things, or had there always been something more, hiding in plain sight? I tried to be normal, I really did, but it's hard to be normal when you're realizing you're in love with your best friend. Yeah, love, not just attraction or curiosity or some passing phase. Actual, terrifying, keep-you-up-at-night love. The realization hit me on a random Tuesday in November. We were in the library, supposedly studying for midterms, but actually procrastinating by looking up terrible reviews of our favorite movies. Ethan was reading one particularly savage takedown of a sci-fi film we both adored, doing voices and everything, and I was laughing so hard I had to bite my fist to keep from getting us kicked out. And then he looked at me with this huge grin, eyes crinkled at the corners, completely unself-conscious and happy, and my heart just knew. "Oh no," I thought. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." "You okay?" Ethan asked, still smiling. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Fine," I managed. "Just remembered I have a paper due tomorrow." It was a lie. The only thing I'd remembered was that I was completely, hopelessly in love with someone who'd just come out and probably needed time to figure himself out before even thinking about relationships. The timing was catastrophically bad. The risk to our friendship was massive. And yet, knowing all that didn't make my feelings any less real. I excused myself to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection like it might have answers. "Get it together, Chen. He trusts you. He needs you as a friend. Don't fuck this up by catching feelings at the worst possible time." But feelings, I was learning, don't care about timing. Things got more complicated when Ethan decided to come out to the team. He did it after practice on a cold November evening, everyone gathered in the locker room, still riding the high of a good session. Coach had just left, and we were in that relaxed space between effort and rest, when guards are down and honesty comes easier. "Hey, can I say something real quick?" Ethan's voice cut through the usual chatter. The room quieted. 12 guys, all looking at him with various degrees of curiosity and concern. I stood against my locker, heart pounding, knowing what was coming and terrified for him. "So, Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tell I'd come to recognize. I've been doing some thinking lately about who I am, and I realized I've been hiding something from you guys, from myself, really. You could have heard a pin drop. I'm gay, he said simply, and I wanted you to know because you're my team, my family, and I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. I watched faces, surprise, processing, a few guys nodding like pieces suddenly fit. My fists clenched at my sides, ready to step in if anyone said anything shitty, ready to fight the whole team if that's what it took. Then Marcus, our center and team captain, stepped forward. He was a giant of a man, 6'9", built like a truck, with a beard that made him look way older than 22. He clapped a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Took you long enough," he said with a grin. "You think we didn't notice you never joined us at Roosters when those girls from the volleyball team invited us out?" Nervous laughter rippled through the room. "You're still the same guy who's been carrying our asses all season," Marcus continued. "Still the best point guard in the conference, still the one who brings donuts to morning practice. This doesn't change anything that matters." One by one, the guys came over, handshakes, shoulder bumps, a few thanks for trusting us, and proud of you, man. It wasn't perfect. I saw a couple guys who looked uncomfortable, who left without saying anything. But overwhelmingly, the response was support. Ethan's eyes were bright with unshed tears when he found me in the crowd. I pulled him into a hug, not caring who saw, feeling his body relax against mine. "You did it," I murmured into his ear. "We did it," he corrected. "I couldn't have without knowing you had my back." And there it was again, that dangerous warmth, that feeling of being essential to someone you'd walk through fire for. The team dinner that Friday was at Angelo's, this Italian place we'd been going to since freshman year. They knew us by name, always gave us the big table in the back, never complained when we got too loud. We just won our 6th straight game, and the mood was celebratory. I was sitting across from Ethan, watching him laugh at something Tyler said, and it struck me how much had changed in just a few weeks. He looked free, like he'd been holding his breath for years, and finally remembered how to exhale. "You keep staring at him," said a voice beside me. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Marcus had slid into the seat next to mine, eyes knowing. "I'm not." "Don't bother lying to me, Chen. I've known you too long." He took a sip of his beer. "How long?" There was no point in pretending I didn't understand. "I don't know, months, maybe, but I only really admitted it to myself recently." "Does he know?" "God no, and he's not going to. Marcus, he just came out. He's dealing with family shit, figuring out who he is. The last thing he needs is his best friend complicating things." Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching Ethan across the table. "You know what I think? I have a feeling you're going to tell me. I think you're underestimating him, and I think you're so busy trying to protect him that you're not seeing what's right in front of you." "What's that supposed to mean?" But Marcus just smiled and stood up. "You'll figure it out. You're smart when you're not being an idiot about your feelings." He walked away, leaving me confused and unsettled. What had he seen that I was missing? The answer came a week later, at the most unexpected time. We were at my apartment again, a regular occurrence now. Ethan had started coming over after practices, and we'd fall into this easy routine of ordering food, watching games, talking about everything and nothing. It felt natural, comfortable, dangerous. That night we'd ordered Thai from my favorite place, Pad See Ew for me, drunken noodles for him. The Celtics game was on TV, but neither of us was really watching. Ethan was stretched out on one end of the couch, I was on the other, and we were in the middle of one of those conversations that meandered from topic to topic without destination. "Can I ask you something personal?" Ethan said during a commercial break. "You can ask me anything, you know that." He hesitated, which was unlike him. "Have you ever, I mean with me coming out and everything, it got me thinking, have you ever questioned, like, your sexuality?" My heart stopped, started again too fast. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious, and because," he stopped, seeming to wrestle with his words, Because I realized I never asked. I came out to you, dumped all my stuff on you, but I never asked about you, about your experience. This was it, the moment where I could deflect, make a joke, keep everything safe and unchanged. Or I could be honest, meet his courage with my own. I heard myself say, been questioning, I mean. Ethan sat up straighter, giving me his full attention. Yeah. Yeah, for a while now, actually. I thought maybe I was bi, but recently, I took a breath. Recently, I've been pretty sure I'm not attracted to women at all, that I've just been going through the motions because it's what I thought I was supposed to do. Alex, his voice was soft. How recently? Does it matter? To me it does. I finally looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were intense, searching mine for something, that storm cloud gray that I'd memorized without meaning to. The night you came out to me, I admitted, something shifted, or maybe it didn't shift. Maybe I just finally let myself see what had been there all along. The silence that followed was different from any silence we'd shared before. It was charged, electric, full of unspoken questions and possibilities. Ethan moved closer, closing the distance between us on the couch until we were separated by inches instead of feet. Alex, he said again, and the way he said my name, like it meant something more than just letters strung together, made my breath catch. I need to tell you something too. Okay. The reason I was able to come out when I did, the reason I found the courage. He reached out, fingers brushing against my hand where it rested on the couch cushion between us. It was because of you, not just because I knew you'd support me, but because somewhere along the way, being around you started to feel like the only time I could breathe. And I realized I couldn't keep living a lie when the truth was sitting right next to me, making terrible jokes and always remembering my coffee order. Oh, oh, Ethan, You don't have to say anything, he interrupted quickly. I know the timing is weird. I know I literally just came out, and I probably need time to figure myself out before jumping into anything. But I also know that I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. And I feel, he stopped, took a breath. I feel something when I'm with you, something that goes way beyond friendship, have for months. My heart was doing acrobatics in my chest. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't even know if you were into guys, and I didn't want to risk losing you by making things weird. So what changed? A small smile played at his lips. You've been looking at me differently. Did you know that? These past few weeks, sometimes I'll catch you staring, and there's this look in your eyes that's... He trailed off, shaking his head. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm seeing what I want to see. You're not imagining it. The words came out rougher than I intended, thick with months of suppressed feeling. God, Ethan, you're not imagining anything. The space between us felt like it was vibrating. His hand was still touching mine, and I turned my palm up, letting our fingers interlace properly. This time, it felt different from that first night, less like comfort and more like a promise. So where does that leave us? He asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. I don't want to rush you into anything. You just came out. You're dealing with your family. There's so much you're processing. Alex, he squeezed my hand. Stop trying to protect me from my own feelings. Yeah, I'm processing a lot. Yeah, my dad's being an ass. Yeah, I'm figuring out who I am. But one thing I'm sure about, one thing I've been sure about for months, it's you. Those two words, it's you, undid something in me. I don't want to be another complication in your life, I said, even as my thumb traced circles on his palm, even as every cell in my body was screaming at me to stop talking and just kiss him already. You're not a complication. Ethan shifted even closer, and now we were face to face, knees touching, breathing the same air. You're the one thing that makes sense, the one thing that feels right in the middle of everything that's upside down. But what if? Alex, he lifted his free hand to my face, fingers gentle against my jaw. Stop overthinking for once in your life and tell me what you want. What I wanted, God, what didn't I want? I wanted to kiss him until we were both breathless. Wanted to wake up next to him and know it wasn't just as friends. Wanted to hold his hand in public and not worry about what it meant. Wanted all of it, the messy, complicated, terrifying beauty of being with someone you'd already built a life beside as friends and daring to ask for more. I want you, I whispered. I want this, us, whatever that looks like. His smile could have lit up the entire city. Yeah. Yeah. Can I kiss you? In answer, I closed the remaining distance between us. The first brush of his lips against mine was gentle, tentative, like we were both afraid the other might disappear. But then I felt him sigh against my mouth, felt his hand slide from my jaw into my hair, and something in both of us gave way. The kiss deepened, months of longing and held back feeling pouring into it. He tasted like Thai chili and hope, and when his tongue traced my lower lip, I made a sound I'd probably be embarrassed about later, but couldn't bring myself to care about now. We kissed until we were both breathless, until the forgotten game on TV had ended and some late-night show was starting, until my lips felt swollen and my heart felt like it might burst from my chest. When we finally pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against mine, both of us smiling like idiots. That was, he started. Worth the wait, I supplied. I was going to say better than I imagined, but yeah, that too. We stayed like that for a while, just existing in each other's space, our hands still tangled together. Eventually, we shifted until I was leaning against the arm of the couch, and Ethan was tucked against my side, his head on my shoulder. It felt impossibly natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of minutes. So what happens now? I asked, echoing the question from weeks ago. Now, Ethan said, tilting his head to look up at me, we figure it out together, one day at a time, no pressure, no expectations, just us. Just us, I repeated, and kissed the top of his head. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, in my messy apartment with its takeout containers and basketball gear, everything had changed. And for the first time in months, the fear I'd been carrying, the fear of these feelings, of what they meant, of losing him, began to transform into something else. Into hope, into possibility. Into the beginning of something beautiful. Dating your best friend is both easier and harder than you'd imagine. Easier because we already knew each other's rhythms, quirks, and boundaries. We'd built 4 years of trust and inside jokes, of knowing when the other needed space or company, of being able to communicate in looks across crowded rooms. All of that remained. We just got to add kissing and hand-holding and waking up tangled together after falling asleep during movie nights. Harder because now there were stakes. Now when we disagreed about something, there was that tiny voice asking what if this is the fight that breaks us? Now when life got stressful, and senior year of college, with graduation looming and futures uncertain, was nothing if not stressful, we had to figure out how to be both partners and individuals without losing ourselves or each other. We decided to keep things quiet at first, not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted space to figure out what we were without the pressure of outside opinions. The team knew Ethan was gay, but knowing he was dating me was different. We wanted to be sure before we invited that scrutiny. So for a few weeks, we existed in this private bubble. Stolen kisses in empty locker rooms, hands held under tables at group dinners, text messages that made us both smile like idiots in the middle of class. It was exhilarating and terrifying and absolutely perfect. Until it wasn't. The first real problem came the week before Thanksgiving. Ethan's family drama had been simmering in the background, tense phone calls with his mom, complete radio silence from his father, his younger sister texting him sporadically with messages that ranged from supportive to confused. He'd been handling it with as much grace as anyone could, but I could see it wearing on him, the tension in his shoulders, the way he'd stare at his phone like it might explode, the nightmares that sometimes woke him up when he fell asleep at my place. Then his mother called. I was at my desk, attempting to write a paper about postmodern philosophy and failing miserably when Ethan burst into my apartment. I kept a spare key under the mat for him now, another small way our lives had intertwined. One look at his face told me something was wrong. What happened? I stood immediately, crossing to him. My mom, his voice was hollow, She asked if I was coming home for Thanksgiving. I said yes, I already bought my ticket. And then she said, he stopped, jaw working. She said maybe it would be better if I didn't, that Dad's still processing and my being there would make things awkward. Ethan, I'm so sorry. She's uninviting me from Thanksgiving, he continued, like he couldn't quite believe it. My own mother is uninviting me because I'm gay and it makes my father uncomfortable. The pain in his voice broke something in me. I pulled him into my arms and he came willingly, face buried against my neck. He didn't cry, Ethan rarely did, but I felt the shuddering breath he took, the way he gripped my shirt like it was the only thing keeping him upright. You don't need them, I said fiercely. You have people who love you for exactly who you are. It doesn't stop it from hurting. I know, baby, I know. We stood there for a long time, swaying slightly, while I mentally composed a very thorough telling off of Ethan's parents that I'd never actually deliver. Eventually, he pulled back, wiping at his eyes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have just barged in. Stop, you can always barge in, that's what the key is for. I cupped his face in my hands. Look at me, you're not going through this alone, okay? You want to stay in town for Thanksgiving? We'll make our own. You want to go anyway and face them? I'll drive you there and wait in the car. You want to get on a plane and fly somewhere random? I'll pack my bag, whatever you need. A small smile broke through his grief. You'd really fly somewhere random with me. In a heartbeat, I've always wanted to see Montana. Why Montana? Why not Montana? He laughed, watery but real. You're ridiculous. You love it. Yeah, he said softly, leaning in to kiss me. I really do. We ended up hosting Thanksgiving at my apartment. Marcus came, along with a few other teammates who didn't have anywhere to go. Tyler brought his younger brother, who was visiting from out of state. We ordered way too much food from this place that did Thanksgiving dinner to go, and someone bought 3 pumpkin pies, and it was chaotic and loud, and nothing like a traditional family Thanksgiving. It was also kind of perfect. Watching Ethan laugh with the guys, seeing him relaxed and happy despite everything with his family, I felt this overwhelming surge of gratitude for this makeshift family we'd built, for the fact that queer kids like us didn't have to face rejection alone, that we could create our own traditions, our own definitions of home. At one point, Marcus cornered me in the kitchen while I was attempting to figure out how to reheat mac and cheese. You're good for him, he said without preamble. I hope so. No, I mean it. I've known Ethan since freshman year, and I've never seen him like this. Happy, real, even with all the family bullshit, there's this lightness in him that wasn't there before. That's not all because of me, I protested. That's him finally getting to be himself. Maybe, but you're part of it. You're a big part of it. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. Don't fuck it up. That's the plan. Later that night, after everyone had left, and we were cleaning up the disaster zone my apartment had become, Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind while I was loading the dishwasher. Thank you, he murmured against my ear, for today, for making it okay. I turned in his embrace. You don't have to thank me for that. I do though, because you didn't just make today okay, you made it good. You made it feel like family doesn't have to be the people you're born to, it can be the people you choose. Corny, I said, even as my eyes got suspiciously wet. You love corny. I love you. The words were out before I could stop them. We hadn't said them yet, not like that, not with that weight behind them. For a heartbeat, I worried it was too soon, too much. Then Ethan smiled, that beautiful, unguarded smile I'd fallen in love with, and said, I love you too, have for a while if I'm being honest. How long is a while? He pretended to think about it. Remember that game against State last year when you took that charge in the final minute and got the wind knocked out of you? I remembered. I'd been on the ground, struggling to breathe, and Ethan had been the first one there, hand on my chest, telling me to focus on him, that I was okay. I think I knew then, he continued, that watching you get hurt felt like getting hurt myself, that I'd do anything to keep you safe, that you weren't just my teammate or my friend, you were something else, something more. That was almost a year ago, I said, stunned. Yeah, so I've been pinning for you for a while now. Sorry about that. Don't apologize for loving me, you idiot. I pulled him into a kiss that tasted like pumpkin pie and new beginnings. We told the team officially in December, right after our game against our biggest conference rival. We'd won by 12 points, and the locker room was euphoric. In the middle of the celebration, Ethan caught my eye across the room. He raised an eyebrow, ready. I nodded. He didn't make a big announcement, just walked over to where I was standing, took my hand, and kissed me in front of everyone. The locker room went silent for approximately 3 seconds. Then Marcus whooped, Tyler started a slow clap, and suddenly we were being mobbed by teammates offering congratulations and making terrible jokes about how everyone saw this coming. Wait, Tyler said, does this mean you two were together at Thanksgiving? Yeah, I confirmed. So when you disappeared into the kitchen for 20 minutes and came back looking suspicious. We were literally just reheating food, Ethan said, but he was blushing. Sure you were. We were. Coach Martinez found out through the team grapevine, and her only comment was, about damn time. You two have been making eyes at each other since sophomore year. Had we, looking back, maybe she was right. Maybe we'd been heading toward this inevitable point for years, too afraid or oblivious to see it. Either way, we were here now, together, official. It felt right in a way that few things in life do. The season progressed. We won some games, lost others. The pressure mounted as we headed toward conference tournaments and the possibility of making the NCAA tournament. Through it all, Ethan and I navigated our relationship with the same teamwork we'd always had on the court. We learned each other in new ways, learned that Ethan got quiet when he was stressed, and I needed to give him space before checking in, learned that I had a tendency to overthink relationship stuff, and he had to remind me to just feel sometimes instead of analyzing everything to death. Learned that we fought, not often, but when we did, it was intense because we both cared so much. Learned how to apologize, how to compromise, how to love each other even when it was hard. We also learned that being in a same-sex relationship on a college campus wasn't always easy. There were stares in the dining hall, whispers in the hallways, one particularly ugly incident where someone spray-painted a slur on my car. Campus security never found who did it, but the team rallied around us, and Marcus organized a fundraiser that paid for the repaint and then some. But for every moment of ignorance or hate, there were 10 moments of support, teammates who went out of their way to include us, friends who asked genuine questions about our relationship, strangers who saw us holding hands and smiled, and slowly, week by week, we stopped being Ethan and Alex, the gay couple on the basketball team, and just became Ethan and Alex, two people in love, figuring it out like everyone else. March came, tournament season. We made it further than anyone expected, all the way to the Sweet 16. It was a Cinderella run, and every game felt like a gift. But eventually, our luck ran out. We lost to a number 1 seed by 20 points, and just like that, our season was over. For seniors like Ethan and me, it meant our college basketball careers were done. The locker room after that final loss was somber. Guys were crying, hugging, making promises to keep in touch. 4 years of blood, sweat, and brotherhood coming to an end. Coach gave a speech about being proud of us, about how we'd exceeded expectations, about carrying what we'd learned here into whatever came next. When she finished, Ethan stood up. I just want to say something, he began, voice thick with emotion. This team, you guys saved my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. When I was struggling with who I was, when I felt like I had to hide to be accepted, you created a space where I could be honest, where I could be myself. And then you supported me, supported us. He gestured at me. That's not nothing, that's everything. You're not going to make me cry before my post-game interviews, Marcus said, but his voice was rough. Too late, Tyler added, wiping his eyes. Ethan smiled through his own tears. I just wanted you guys to know, this team, this family we built, it's the thing I'm most proud of from my time here, more than any game we won or stat I put up. The family, that's what I'll remember. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Graduation came in May. My parents flew in from California, and seeing them finally meet Ethan as my boyfriend, not just my teammate, not just my friend, felt surreal and wonderful. My mom adored him immediately, and my dad kept trying to talk basketball with him until my mom told him to give the poor boy a break. Ethan's mother came too, not his father. That bridge was still being rebuilt, slowly and painfully, but his mom and sister made the trip. It was awkward at first. She apologized to Ethan, to both of us, tears streaming down her face as she admitted she'd handled everything wrong, that she'd let her fear and her husband's anger cloud her judgment, that she was trying to do better. "It's a process," Ethan told her later, when it was just the three of us at dinner. "You hurt me, Mom, really hurt me, but I also know you're trying, so we'll figure it out, one day at a time." She squeezed his hand across the table, makeup smudged from crying, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen her in photos. "I'm proud of you, of the man you've become, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." Progress, I thought, not perfect, but progress. After graduation, the future loomed large and uncertain. Ethan had gotten accepted to a sports psychology master's program in Boston. I'd landed a job with a tech company in the city, something that would pay well while I figured out my next move. Boston, we were both going to Boston. "Is this crazy?" I asked one night as we packed up my apartment, "following you across the country." "You're not following me," Ethan corrected, carefully wrapping a mug in newspaper. "You got a job in the same city where I'm going to grad school. That's not following, that's coordinating." Semantics. Important semantics. He set the mug down and came over to where I was attempting to fold a fitted sheet, a losing battle. "Alex, do you want to move to Boston with me?" "Yes," I said immediately. "Then it's not crazy, it's just what we want, together." He had a way of making complicated things sound simple. It was one of the many things I loved about him. The summer before our move, we took a road trip. Just the two of us, Ethan's ancient Honda, and no real destination. We drove up the coast, stayed in cheap motels, ate at diners that looked like they hadn't changed since the 1950s. We hiked, we swam, we spent long nights talking about everything and nothing while waves crashed in the background. One evening, we were in Oregon, sitting on a beach as the sun set. The sky was doing that thing where it turns impossible shades of pink and orange, and Ethan's profile was beautiful in the fading light. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. "I'm really happy," I said. He turned to look at me, smiling. Yeah, I know things aren't perfect. I know your dad's still not talking to you, and I know we're about to move across the country into an unknown future, and I know there's going to be challenges we can't even imagine yet. But right now, in this moment, I'm really, truly happy." "Me too," Ethan said softly. "You know what I figured out?" "What's that?" "Happiness isn't about having everything figured out. It's not about perfect circumstances or ideal timing. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be brave, who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway, every single day." My throat tightened. "That's beautiful." I'm paraphrasing something I read in one of my psych textbooks. "Still beautiful, still true." He leaned over and kissed me, tasting like salt air and sunscreen. When we pulled apart, his eyes were serious. "I choose you, Alex Chen. Every day, every challenge, every uncertainty, I choose you." "I choose you too," I whispered, "always." We sat there until the sun disappeared completely, replaced by stars so bright they looked fake. Two boys who'd started as teammates, become friends, and finally dared to become something more. Two boys who'd learned that sometimes the best love stories don't announce themselves with fanfare. They sneak up on you quietly, disguised as friendship, until one day you realize your heart has made a choice your head is only just catching up to. We moved to Boston in August, found a tiny apartment in Cambridge with thin walls and a radiator that clanked like it was haunted. It was perfect. Ethan started his master's program, diving into his studies with the same intensity he'd brought to basketball. I started my job, discovered I was actually pretty good at it, and began to build a life that felt like mine. We made friends in the city, other grad students, people from my office, a whole community of queer folks who welcomed us with open arms. We went to our first Pride together that June, and I cried watching Ethan march with such joy, such freedom. This boy who'd been so scared to come out just a year earlier, now shirtless with rainbow face paint, kissing me in the middle of the street, while thousands of people cheered around us. "I love you," I shouted over the music and the noise. "What?" He cupped his ear, grinning. "I love you." "I love you too." He pulled me into a kiss that tasted like victory. The gym still smelled like old wood and determination. Some things never changed. I watched from the sidelines as Ethan ran drills with a group of high school kids, his whistle around his neck, that same focused intensity in his eyes. He'd finished his master's degree and immediately gotten hired by a nonprofit that provided sports psychology services to LGBTQ+ youth. It was perfect for him, combining his love of basketball with his passion for helping people. One of the kids, a lanky sophomore named Marcus, not related to our Marcus, but funny coincidence, was struggling with his free throws. I watched Ethan crouch beside him, hand on his shoulder, saying something that made the kid nod and square his shoulders. The next shot swished through the net. Ethan's grin could have lit up the city. "That your boyfriend?" I turned to find a woman standing beside me. She was wearing a visitor's badge and holding a notebook, probably a parent or guardian. "Yeah," I said, unable to keep the smile off my face. "That's my boyfriend. He's really good with them. My nephew Marcus says he's the best coach he's ever had. Says Coach Ethan actually gets it, gets what it's like to be different." "He does," I agreed, watching Ethan high-five Marcus. "He really does." The woman smiled and moved off to talk to another parent. I stayed where I was, content to watch the practice, to see Ethan in his element. My phone buzzed with a text from my boss about a project, but I ignored it. Work could wait. Watching the person I loved thrive, seeing him make a difference in kids' lives, knowing we'd built something real and lasting together, this was what mattered. When practice ended and the kids filtered out, Ethan jogged over to me, sweaty and happy. "Hey you, how long have you been here?" "Long enough to see you turn Marcus into a free throw machine." He laughed. "That kid's going to be good, really good. He just needed to believe in himself." "Sounds familiar." "Shut up," but he was smiling as he said it, leaning in to kiss me despite the sweat. We walked home through the city we'd made ours, hands linked, talking about our days, about the kids he was working with, about my latest project at work, about the apartment we were thinking of moving to, bigger, with actual closet space and a kitchen that didn't require spiritual negotiations with the oven. About the life we were building, one day at a time. "You happy?" I asked as we climbed the stairs to our current place. Ethan stopped on the landing, turning to face me. "You ask me that a lot." "Because I want to know." "Alex," he cupped my face in his hands. "I'm coaching kids who need exactly what I needed at their age. I'm living with the love of my life in a city we chose together. I get to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. Yes, I'm happy. I'm so happy it scares me sometimes." "Yeah," my voice came out rough. "Yes, you." I thought about the scared boy I'd been senior year of college, terrified to admit his feelings. Thought about Ethan on that rain-soaked court, carrying weight that wasn't his to carry alone. Thought about how far we'd come, the battles fought, the tears shed, the love built brick by brick into something unshakable. "I'm happy," I said simply. "With you, I'm always happy." He kissed me there in the stairwell, and I thought about beginnings, about how sometimes the best love stories start with friendship, with trust, with someone who sees you at your worst and chooses to stay. About how my teammate had needed support, and I'd become more than a friend. I'd become his partner, his love, his home. And he'd become mine. "Come on," Ethan said, pulling back with a smile. "Let's go home." So we did.